Da sebi nyamne da shengi rangla nyoba cheba na dedeli ane chi sebo komya de kanis kongure si de dang de gumje mangbura samda je da de sebo komgo be ne chi kansa deli gumje samda de ne gumje mangbu samda wi thone da sebo komgo de chagorwa de ne zana ngo.
Good evening. So we're continuing to look at how to train one's mind to develop a strong patience attitude. And so last week we looked at how to practice patience when others harm one, which one will become able to become skilled in this if one engages in a reflection on a wide number of reasons beforehand, so that one becomes deeply habituated to this way of thinking. So last week, amongst the various reasons we looked at, Shantideva made the analogy of our body being like an abscess, in that just with the slightest of touches, just with the slightest of touches, our body erupts in pain. So why is this body so sensitive that it can be from the smallest cause, like brushing against a boil or just our tongue moving against an abscess, against such a small cause, can such a strong reaction come? Well, this body has come about independent on the causes we accumulated. Because of the causes we accumulated, we have these contaminated aggregates, these appropriated contaminated aggregates. So therefore, part of the reason that we suffer is because of the causes we have accumulated ourselves. The 45th verse. The spiritually immature have no wish to suffer, yet crave the causes of suffering. Thus, as harm arises due to our own faults, why be furious with others? The term translated as spiritually immature is literally would normally be translated as the childish, in that it refers to young kids like toddlers. But the meaning is the spiritually immature, ordinary beings, those who have yet to accomplish a path within, accomplish a mental path. So the spiritually immature, like all beings, desire happiness and want to be free of suffering, problems, and difficulties. But despite desiring happiness and to be free from problems and difficulties, they do not know what the causes for happiness are, or if they have heard them, they haven't taken them to heart. They are not living in accordance with this knowledge. And likewise, they do not know what the causes are that lead to suffering. And if they have heard them, again, they haven't taken them to heart. They're not living in accordance with avoiding them. So these are the spiritually immature, those who have no wish to suffer, but yet do. So we're going to come to the second line, and I'm just going to change that first word. So all sentient beings, whether human or animal or non-human, yearn to be free of suffering, to abide in lasting happiness. But if they don't know what the causes are to achieve that, they're going to continue to wander around as if blind, making error after error, engaging in activity thinking this will lead to the eradication of problems and the attainment of happiness. And all too often it does not. So they, for example, do not recognize that, now the second line, attachment is a cause for suffering, yet are attached to the causes for suffering. So you can translate it like this: yet attached to the causes of suffering. So they do not recognize this at all due to their confused ignorance. They think, for example, that by engaging in gainful employment, such as butchering or perhaps hunting, that from this employment, that their life will go well. They'll earn a good living, they'll be able to care for their family, and so forth. But the karmic causes that follow are grave indeed. And this is the case behind all non-virtuous behavior. There is a wish for happiness and a wish to be freed of suffering. Motivated with that, but deluded by confused ignorance, beings lie, they steal, they engage in sexual misconduct, in harsh speech, in divisive speech, in pointless speech. So all these various forms of non-virtue are engaged in by someone wanting to be happy and free of suffering. But with a mind confused by ignorance, they end up creating the causes for further suffering. It's through attachment we accumulate so many causes for suffering. Of course, through all the afflictions, but attachment stands out. We're attached to having things go our way, attached to having a comfortable life. So, for example, to earn a living, to buy the requisites so as to have a comfortable life, people need to go to work, engage in various activities. And in this process, will all too often take advantage of others so as to gain immediate benefit, or maybe gain a promotion, or deceive others, lie to others. And they can engage in a variety of clearly unethical behavior, such as corruption, and easily make excuses for this unethical behavior because they are deceived by their afflictions, in particular attachment, confused ignorance. What we see is for the spiritually immature, those who have not come to gain certainty about the causes for happiness and the causes for suffering, that despite wanting to be free of pain and suffering and abide in lasting happiness, they keep creating the causes for further suffering. And why are ordinary beings in this pitiful situation? Now the third and fourth line. Thus, as harm arises due to our own faults. So why be furious with others? So we are in this position because of karma that has ripened, karma that we have accumulated in lives previous to this. We have gained thereby these appropriated but contaminated aggregates. And we also have a strong habituation to the afflictions. The afflictions then, which ripen our past accumulated non-virtuous karma and lead to the accumulation of further non-virtue. So therefore, we play a central role in our own suffering. So why, now the fourth line, why be furious with others? This expression of fury towards others is just putting the blame entirely on others when we hold so much responsibility. But in our confused ignorance, we are blinded to even that. When we encounter hardships, when others directly harm us, perhaps with their speech or maybe even physically, or they cheat us, take advantage of us, deceive us, then we readily point the finger of blame at others. We may explode in fury, or we may tell everyone about how we've been wronged by this other person. So this is the common way that people engage or act. So this is the immature way, the spiritually immature way, the childish way that ordinary beings respond. We need to recognize, though, that we are in such a position where we can be harmed, where we have a body that can be physically harmed, where we have the way of thinking that will be harmed by mere words, and so forth, because of the causes we have accumulated. We are in this position because of the causes we have accumulated. So both now and in lives previous to this, when we accumulated the causes we are experiencing now, we didn't want to suffer. We wanted to only experience happiness. Despite this, because of being ignorant about the causes for happiness, we have all too often engaged in the opposite, followed the afflictions, and created the causes for further suffering. So therefore, how can we be furious with others? How can we blame others when our pain is self-inflicted? Rather, we should be patient with others, not place the blame on them. And together with being patient towards others and not placing the blame on them, recognize that it's this past karma we've accumulated that has led to this situation, and with the strength of mind, be determined to not repeat past mistakes and abandon accumulating further causes of suffering, and do so primarily through being patient with hardships. And this is a key point to come to in these reflections. I'm in my situation because of karma I've accumulated, and that karma that I've accumulated, I accumulated because of my afflictions. Therefore, learning from my mistakes, I will abandon these afflictions. This brings us to the 46th verse, which presents an illustration. For example, just like the guardians of hell and the forest of sword leaves are produced by my own karma, with whom or what should I be angry? Looking at the illustration, in the first line, just like the guardians of hell. So this refers to when a being is born in hell, they all too often in this hellish experience are surrounded by guardians in the sense of like prison guards, those who have power over you, who inflict pain and torture you. For example, when one is trapped within a burning building, these guards ensure that you cannot flee that burning building, but rather have to remain trapped inside, tortured by the flames. Or in other expressions of hell, they directly torture one, burn you, slash you, sever your limbs, and so forth. So what's been presented again here is that these guardians, again as in prison guards, they are not sentient beings. They are rather a manifestation that is ripened from one's own karma. Due to the karma that has led to rebirth in this particular hell, these so-called guardians are there as expressions or manifestations of one's own non-virtuous karma. In the second line, and the forest of sword leaves. So now we're looking at the environment, the hellish environment. So there are a wide variety of manifestations of hellish experiences. Some are, as mentioned previously, one is trapped inside a burning building. Here it's an illustration of a forest of sword leaves, which are on the side of a steep hill, and one is at the bottom of the hill, and hears one's loved ones calling out to you from the top, yearning for them. One rushes up the hill through this forest. The leaves of the trees are actually all sharp blades, and those blades are facing down. And as you rush up towards your loved ones, they cut into you, sever your limbs, pierce your body. And when you eventually, tattered and torn and bleeding and in immense pain, reach the top, those voices were just, again, an expression of one's karma. There's no being there. Dejected, one now looks around, sees no one, but then hears your loved ones, but now from the bottom of the hill. Again, driven by attachment, one runs down the hill towards them, but now these blades have turned around and now they're facing up. And once again, gets stabbed, and one's limbs get severed, and experiences immense suffering running down to the bottom of the hill, where again, one's loved ones are not there. So what we see here in the second line is that one's environment here hasn't been created. There are no gardeners planting these trees or blacksmiths fashioning these blades. This is a manifestation of one's karma, just like in the first line with the guardians of the hell, the beings in the hell. They are not sentient beings, but rather manifestations of the ripening of one's non-virtuous karma. The third line. So we recognize here from the first line that the guardians, so the beings that one encounters in hell, as well as the hellish environment, the second line, now the third line, are produced by my own karma. So this means in lives previous to this hellish experience, one created non-virtue, which ripened in the propelling karma at the time of death, and one arose then in this hellish experience, whereby one's non-virtuous karma has ripened in this hellish experience. One is experiencing both an environment and the beings in there, which are all created by one's own non-virtuous karma. So that's the third line, produced by my own karma. This leads then by reflecting on this analogy, it leads you to the conclusion in the fourth line. With whom or what should I be angry? This has all come about in dependence on the karma I myself created. So, with whom or with what should I be angry? So, for some people, the presentation of the hell realms, or even their existence, is difficult to accept. So if it is difficult for you to accept, then stay with this illustration rather. Take as an example a dream. Especially if one has a frightening dream. Perhaps one is being harmed by people, chased by an animal, or in an environment where you're experiencing a grave danger. Perhaps you're drowning in a fast-flowing river. Whatever it may be, your response in this dream is that fear arises, maybe terror arises. Now, afterwards, when you've woken up and if you're recalling your dream, you know in reality you did not encounter such a person or such an animal, and you were not actually in that environment. Yet you're terrified. Similarly, whatever we experience in the waking state, like with dreams, does not exist in the way that it appears. In that has come about independence on causes. Amongst those causes include our karma, the causes that we have accumulated in lives previous to this and are now ripening. So this then has the same meaning as the illustration of the hell realms. So you can take that of a dream, see how that we know is not real, and then come to look at how we relate to things in our lived experience, and recognize, actually, it has all come about in dependence on causes, that karma that I've accumulated. The meaning of the 45th and 46th verses is that all problems, suffering, and difficulties that we experience come about in dependence on causes. And amongst those causes, a primary cause is the karma that we ourselves have accumulated. If we had not accumulated such karma, we would not experience such a result. Therefore, how can I hold others as being solely responsible? All that is encountered in dependence on a wide variety of causes. Yet, this pointing a finger outwards, blaming others, angry at others, makes no sense. What does make sense is to understand that to be angry at others is counterproductive, makes no sense, and therefore I should train to rather respond with patience. That brings us to the 47th verse. Impelled by my own karma, those who cause me harm come into being. If through that these beings go to hell, was it not I who crushed them? The first two lines. So here, impelled by my own karma. So this is the karma that we've accumulated in this, but primarily in lives previous to this. All this mass of karmic imprints that abides on our continuum that we brought with us into this life and we've added to, impelled by these karmic imprints, through the strength of these karmic imprints. Now the second line, those who cause me harm come into being. They come into our parameters, we encounter them. Those who cause me harm, we encounter those who cause me harm. They come into being. If one has stolen in the past and has those karmic imprints from stealing abiding on one's continuum, unpurified, then should such a karmic imprint ripen, through the power of that imprint, interacting with someone around us, the thought will arise in their mind, oh, I wouldn't mind stealing this or taking that. And like this, a valued possession of ours gets stolen. So the karma that we have accumulated in the past plays a role in the interdependency that then leads to us being the recipient of others' actions of stealing in this life. I gave the illustration of stealing. This is the case with other karmic results that come about in dependence on others. So, for example, if someone is criticizing us or speaking harshly to us or blaming us falsely for doing something, in this web of interdependency, we have created the causes for this. And through the power of the karmic causes we've created, this cause is part of the causes leading to the other person speaking badly to us or speaking behind our back. And so too in the case of being on the receiving end of physical harm. Whilst even if one hasn't said or done anything that should warrant this attack, yet one has created the karma to be in this very position now, be the recipient of this aggression. Like we looked at a few weeks ago, or some weeks ago, in terms of the lack of free will. When this person is inflicting harm on us, maybe verbally or physically, they are doing so under the control of causes, not with free will. And part of this web of causes includes the karma that we ourselves have accumulated. When someone's causing us harm, acting unskillfully towards us, we play a role in the interdependency. Our negative karma has an impact on them, impels them. But they are the ones now acting in an afflicted manner and creating non-virtuous karma. And that karma will ripen in their own suffering experiences in lives to come. And that then is the meaning of the third line. If through that these beings go to hell. So by someone committing grave offense to us, we have played a karmic part and a causal part in the harm that is being done, but they are accumulating this new non-virtuous karma and therefore will have to experience a suffering result themselves, perhaps as rebirth in the lower realms. Again, it's now just explaining this word translated as go. So it's an uncommon word, and it's, despite being an uncommon word, when it's translated, it's commonly translated as go or as proceed. Again, it's also used in the context, we'd say fall, as in falling into a well. So in that context, this verb is also used. So therefore, it could well be translated or correctly translated as fall into hell. And then the fourth line presents the consequence of this. Was it not I who crushed them? So then, can I explain this word crushed? So it means to crush or to destroy, to annihilate something. What it's pointing though to is that this person who has done harm to us, we have a role to play in terms of the interdependency of causes that have led them to harming us. In that, we have this non-virtuous karma, which has enabled us to be the recipients of such harmful behavior. And this non-virtue was part of what impelled them to harm us. So therefore, because of the role, the non-virtuous karma that we accumulated in our past lives played in this interaction, we have played a part in this person creating the causes that will lead them to suffer. And as we see in this illustration, suffering immensely, falling to the lower realms, possibly even to hell. So this is something to reflect on further. The conclusion to come to in one's reflection here is that to recognize that it is partially independent on our own non-virtuous karmic imprints that this person was impelled to act to us in a harmful manner, and thereby, through this non-virtue that they are accumulating, they are creating the causes for their own future immense suffering. Therefore, how can I be angry with this person? How can I be angry for this person who, partially in dependence on me, is creating the causes for such immense pain and suffering in their future? The only worthwhile response is one of patience and compassion. Compassion for this being that you're witnessing before you, creating the causes for immense pain. This then brings us to the 48th verse. In dependence upon them, my patience has purified so much non-virtue. In dependence upon me, they have gone to hell, suffering for an eternity. The first two lines, in dependence upon them. So them, of course, being this person or these people who have harmed me. So in dependence on them, my patience has purified so much non-virtue. So this is pointing to having trained well in patience. When others harm you, one recognizes that this being before you is suffering. And thereby, in dependence on the many reasons that have been presented, one can be patient. One can give rise to genuine compassion for this afflicted being who is suffering and creating the causes for further suffering. And by actually practicing patience, so the mind is staying undisturbed, and thereby compassion, love, wisdom can arise. One is accumulating immense virtue as well as purifying immense non-virtue. And thereby, one is also progressing towards the attainment of Buddhahood, the fulfillment of the Bodhisattva aspiration. So this person before you, who's acting this afflicted, unskillful, harmful way, perhaps physically harming you, or speaking to you in an unkind way, or deceiving you, you have attained immense benefit from them. The third and fourth line points to the result for them is completely the opposite. In dependence upon me, they have gone to hell, suffering for an eternity. So they've expressed their afflictions to us, acted to us in this harmful manner, partially in dependence on our own non-virtuous karmic imprints accumulated in the past. And in dependence on that, they therefore have acted in this harmful way, created the causes for suffering right now, and will suffer in the future, potentially falling to hell, suffering for an eternity. The meaning then of this verse is that in dependence on my non-virtues is acting as this indirect cause for their afflictions, they have created immense non-virtue. So perhaps what is ripening here is my own non-virtue of accumulated due to anger, and this person now is acting under the influence of perhaps anger, and therefore are speaking or acting in a harmful way to me. But because of my subsequent training in patience, I'm receiving so much benefit from this interaction, accumulating immense virtue, purifying immense non-virtue, and thereby progressing towards Buddhahood. But for them, the situation is the opposite. This person is accumulating causes for immense suffering in the future, as well as suffering now. Therefore, how can I possibly respond with anger to someone who's potentially benefiting me so, and who's suffering so right now, and even more in lives to come? To summarize the meaning of these four verses we've looked at tonight, builds on what we looked at also last week, that what we experience is due to the karma we have created. So in this context, we're looking primarily at the harm that we experience, the problems, the suffering and difficulty. Whatever it may be, we can only experience it because we have accumulated such causes. If we had not accumulated such causes, we could never experience the result. So this we need to take to heart, because it can help us with patience, but it also helps us in our determination to secondly, purify, and thirdly, to ensure we only accumulate virtue by not coming under the influence of the afflictions, but rather minds of virtue. So therefore, we recognize that the cause for all suffering, pain, and misery is karma and afflictions. And when we are the recipient of others' aggression, others' delusion by means of ignorance or attachment, to always remember that this is a suffering being, as am I. I'm in this position because of the causes I've created, and this suffering being before me is creating the causes that lead to ever greater suffering. Therefore, the only valid response, no matter what is going on, is one of patience and kindness. So that's the first part to take away, to help strengthen our determination to be patient. Secondly, to add through our recognition that karma and afflictions are what cause us to suffer, strengthen your determination to apply yourself to purifying non-virtue. And you can add from this, as part of your motivation, is so as to reduce your role in the interdependency that leads to others acting in an afflicted manner. For the sake of others too, I will now apply myself to purification. And a further commitment, or further learning one can take from this, is that moving forward, I commit to not coming under the influence of the afflictions, because I recognize ever more that through these afflictions, not only do I suffer, but others suffer as well. They are the cause for all our pain. Some of what's been presented tonight, for a practitioner who applies themselves to thinking deeply about the Dharma, this will make some sense. For those who don't really think about the Dharma, they probably will continue to think in the way of ordinary people, pointing the finger of blame elsewhere, not recognizing their role in the interdependent karmic expressions that we experience. And a further point that was touched on tonight, that requires a deep reflection to come to recognize, is that of the presentation on the hell realms and the guardians within the hell realms. So here you heard tonight that the hell guardians, those who are inflicting the torture and the suffering on the hell being, are not actual sentient beings. They are not of a continuum separate from the person in hell, in that there are not several sentient beings there, but the hell guardians are rather a karmic ripening of the person's grave non-virtue that led them to being born in hell. Which will lead one then to recognize that being born in hell is quite possibly entirely alone. They may be surrounded by tormentors, but those tormentors are not other beings. They are there alone, suffering under the power of their own immense non-virtue, or gravely powerful non-virtue. They are entirely alone, experiencing the results of their negative karma. So we can conclude there, but there is still quite a bit of time. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. If you need to go, feel free to leave. I'd like to then just to conclude by tying tonight's presentation to what we've been looking at recently in the Lamrim presentation on the weekends. So we looked at this past weekend a threefold division of karma into virtuous karma, non-virtuous karma, and unspecified karma. So virtuous karma means one has a virtuous mind of intent, or mental factor of intent, which is virtuous, that through this virtuous intention, one accumulates virtuous karmic imprints, which abide on one's continuum. And when these imprints meet their ripening conditions, they will ripen in the feelings of happiness. Second type is that of non-virtuous karma. So this is accumulated when one's intent, the mental factor of intention, which is an omnipresent mental factor, when it is afflicted, and therefore with an afflicted non-virtuous motivation, or intention rather, a non-virtuous intention, one accumulates non-virtuous karma, and those imprints abide in one's continuum, and when they ripen into suffering feelings. Then the third type of karma is unspecified or ethically neutral. Unspecified as in the Buddha did not specify it as being virtuous or non-virtuous. So this is ethically neutral, unspecified. When that means that one's mental factor of intention, which is the actual karma, or what creates the karma, that mental factor then is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous, so therefore the karmic imprints accumulated and placed on the continuum are unspecified. They are neither virtuous or non-virtuous. And when they ripen, they don't ripen into suffering feelings, they don't ripen into happy feelings, they ripen into neutral feelings. So this is the process by which how karma is created, so it's this mental factor of intent, and whether karma is virtuous or non-virtuous depends on that intent, and thereby it will dictate the ripening result. So this is something that needs to be studied well and thought about greatly, because one is very reliant here on the Buddha's teachings on karma. It's not something one can readily recognize with complete certainty. So therefore, we'll be covering it in our weekend teachings and here too. So I encourage you to continue to reflect on that and use it here too to cultivate the mind of patience. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then we can conclude there for this week too. Thank you.
Dreams or something that you have a dream about your own children, like my grandmother used to dream about us kids, and she would ring when we were sick, or just the aspects of dreams that can actually be revealing to what's going on externally or internally to you. So, like with the collective kind of karma of the externally, so it's like a reveal sometimes what's going on externally. Like how much do we take it all as just our own karma ripening, or is it also externally sort of collective karma also ripening?
So, yeah, no, it does. So the dreams that we experience, are those dream appearances solely from our own accumulated karma, or is there some interplay with the karma from those around us, collective karma? For example, we've heard tonight that the karma on our continuum seems to have impel the action of others, interplays with their own karma. So is there something in the dream state where the karma of others can have an impact on what we are dreaming of, on our dreams, yeah? Okay. So the answer to your question in brief is yes. So, and then more expansively. So what we heard in tonight's presentation, certainly we can then take from this that it's quite possible, so it's not that it happens, but it always happens, but it can happen, it's possible that others, the karma on the continuum of others can have an impact on our dreams, on what ripens in the dreams, in a similar way that we heard about the interdependence in the waking state. So it definitely doesn't always happen, but it certainly is something that is conceivable, is possible. And then so I asked, and what about other times when, and I gave the illustration, you're thinking of someone and they were thinking of you too, so they phoned you. And it's like, oh, I was just thinking of you, and you speak to them. So again, I said, yep, it's possible. Again, this is some kind of cause and effect relationship, or it may just be a coincidence, nothing more.